Boom.
Welcome to the Build and Grow with Real Estate show, everybody, where we teach people how to be ants, not grasshoppers. Real estate is awesome. Real estate is great. We think that you should invest in real estate, and it should be how you grow your wealth, but it should also be where you build a career, and being good at one really helps you be good at the other. So that's what we do.
Right.
That's what we come to you at here with the show. My name is Judah Hoover, and my contact information is right up here. I'm a real estate investor and a realtor. This guy I did it wrong. I was just talking to
you messed it up.
This guy right over here is Josh Weidman. He is a hard money lender and a real estate investor. And Josh, where can somebody find your contact information?
Sure. Look at this right up top. This is the first day in a while where we've got this right. So, if you're looking to, we got a news article today about real estate agents. It's the last article of the day, or the last news item of the day that we're going to cover. But this is such an important time to hire a good agent.
Yes.
And I know that it sounds silly. Like, in a bad market, you got to hire a good agent so that they can get your face out there, or your property out there. You can get lots of people through it, and hopefully you get an acceptable offer. But in a market like today, where it's so competitive, you look around, and the difference between the good agents and the bad agents are not the photos. It's not the foot traffic. It's how to handle the 4, 5, 6 offers that you're getting on one property in the first weekend of showings. And anyway, but long story short, if you're looking at listing a house, or you want somebody to represent you in buying a house, this guy right here, Judah, you got to give him a call. He's a real estate agent, and with a ton of experience, not just as an agent, but as an investor. And it's just, we got a lot of really great news items today that are going to feed into your real estate lifestyle, whether you are flipping houses, or you're buying rentals, or you're listing houses, or maybe you're a contractor and you're making money off of this real estate boom that's going on. Whatever the case might be, we got some really great articles. Judah, before we jump in, you got any big plans for the weekend here, man? What do you got going on?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm a skydiver. And as we've talked about on several occasions, Saturday is safety day at the club. So we will be doing that. Just having some seminars and things like that once a year. We take a Saturday and kind of really focus on brushing up on all safety and everything like that. Tonight, getting together with my brother and his kids and my kids. We're going to Fuddruckers because it's one of my middle schoolers. They're having like a fundraiser, like where 20% of the tab goes to the school. And believe it or not, this is going to be an event. It's going to be an event, wow. Josh. Sunday, I am going to in-person church. Haven't been to in-person church in over a year. I certainly try not to get too preachy here on the show, but that's one of the things that we're going to be doing.
Oh, Judah, you Lancaster County boys are way behind the times. Up here in Lebanon County, we've been getting together for church every Sunday for quite some time. So I get it. It's nice to have you back, Judah. That's great.
Appreciate it. Hey, let's jump into some news here stories, my friend, because one of the things that we do, why Josh is bringing that up, I would just say that there's a lot of news out there, and there's a lot of different places you can go to get your news. One of the things that Josh and I think is valuable is distilling the news through the prism of real estate and what it means for real estate. And so that's what we try to do every Friday. Take a look at the big news stories from the week and just kind of talk about it.
That's right. So biggest news, the lead story for today is JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon announced his expectations for the economy moving forward, right? And the Q1 newsletter came out of JP Morgan earlier this week, and the news was pretty good for the economy, or the outlook is pretty good for the economy, for investing, and for owning assets.
Yeah, I mean, and here's why this is such a big thing. I mean, JP Morgan is obviously a huge company. Back from the times when the man himself, Morgan, literally wrote a check to bail out the U.S. government because the U.S. government was about to go bankrupt. So when the man who sits on that throne speaks about economic things, it's important to listen to him. And there's a whole lot of people who think that there might be certain imbalances in the economy that could lead to crashes and other things like that. And we're not saying there's not black swans out there, and we're not saying that there's not potential for some Middle Eastern country deciding to attack some other Middle Eastern country, and who knows what that could lead to. But
and Judah, there's always Canada.
Right.
Those Canadians, you gotta watch those Canadians right on our northern border.
You gotta watch them, absolutely. So no matter, obviously there can always be political events, and we just saw last year a huge, pandemic. So barring all that, Jamie Dimon says if everything goes according to plan, he's seeing strong economic boom through 2023. And so he says stocks are going to be going up. It's a good time to buy assets. There's just a whole lot of things that he's seeing. And that, if anybody would know, it would be him.
So, you know what I think is very interesting about the pandemic relief funds that went out. I even forget, what is it? A total of like $3,200, right? $1,200 the first time, $2,000 the next time. Something like that, right? The interesting thing here is I think that a lot of grown-ups that were around for 2008 saw this money coming in, and instead of going and buying a flat screen TV or a new computer or an Xbox, they said, you know what? Let's hold on to this and see what happens.
Right.
And when that happened, what you have is an increase in the savings rates across the board in the United States. That creates a ton of security in the economy. And I think, that was one of the factors that he pulled out. He said, look, because of the way Americans and the US government reacted to the pandemic, our reactions have allowed us to look at this and say, moving forward, our economy is strong and the outlook is positive for years to come. And then the but came, right? I think the outcome or the outlook on the economy is great, but he brought up some serious questions about challenges that we can see and that really came out over the last year. And that is in the areas of politics and social dysfunction or social conflict. I think that is pretty darn insightful. And it's almost like he's saying, hey, all things considered, the economy is doing really great. But if things go wrong, it's probably going to go wrong because of something in these, in these sectors.
Yep. And I have more comments for you offline about that, Josh.
Okay, awesome. Good to hear. All right. So news story number 2, paying rent with Bitcoin. Listen, I don't follow Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin investor. Maybe I missed the boat. I used to be a Bitcoin investor when it was less than $1,000 a coin and got out. Yeah, got out, unfortunately. But long story short, this morning I'm reading through some news articles and it's at 56,000 per coin, which is insane. And then I ran across this story that Rick Caruso's real estate company is now accepting Bitcoin as for rent, but has also used Bitcoin as part of their company's model for investment. They took a lot of the funds that they would have put into the capital markets. They've invested in Bitcoin, and they've encouraged their tenants to pay with Bitcoin. In fact, the Rick Caruso, he partnered with the CEO of a Bitcoin exchange. Oh man, where is this? What's the name of it? I think it's Gemini Gemini.
The Winklevosses.
Tyler Winklevoss. That's right. Of Facebook fame.
Right. A Facebook movie fame.
Right.
Not necessarily Facebook fame, but yeah. Who's Rick Caruso again?
Rick Caruso runs or owns. He's a billionaire. He owns a bunch of California real estate and a bunch of rental properties. And right now he's the largest real estate related company that has announced that they're going to accept Bitcoin as payment. So
gotcha. I wasn't sure if he was famous for anything else other than just his real estate holdings. I wasn't sure. So here's what's kind of interesting about this. While we're here on Bitcoin, Peter Thiel, famous conservative. Also, while we're talking about Facebook, he's the one who kind of did some of the angel investing in Facebook
Facebook.
to take it
Yeah.
live. And Peter Thiel is famous for a number of other, calls that he's gotten right. He's also famous for being rather conservative in his political views. But he said that he is bullish on Bitcoin, but as a conservative, which is interesting, he is calling on the federal government to look into regulating cryptos because he thinks that it could that the track
Could be used
record
as
is there. The groundwork is laid. That's what I want to say. The groundwork is laid that it could replace the US dollar. See, right now, everyone's always been talking for the past 20 years about how, oh, it's the end of the dollar and, something else could replace the dollar. And, if anything ever replaces the dollar, it'd be the end of the world. And I've always said, well, what currency would do that? Because no one else is, as much as the U.S. is hated around the world, if you were to, list every country out there and how much they are liked by people, the U.S. is always, we score better uniformly than any other country out there. The U.S. dollar uniformly has more trust than any other single currency out there. And when you look at, well, people talk about, well, it could be a basket of currencies. Okay, great. All you've done is multiply the problem. You sound smart when you say, what's going to replace the US dollar as a basket of currencies? Okay, fabulous. What currencies are going to be in it? What currencies aren't going to be in it? And how are you going to weight? If you put 5 or 6 currencies in the basket, and then how are you going to weight them? Are they all going to have the same weight or not, or whatever? The point is, it's a huge mess of a problem, and nothing's going to replace the US dollar except something coming totally from outfield, potentially like
disruption. Exactly. And Peter Thiel, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't he part of the PayPal mafia? Isn't he?
I think he was the other half of PayPal. Yeah.
Right. So
that's initially where he made his money to then invest in Facebook. I could be wrong, but I think that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, you think about the way this was thought about in the past, right? Before Bitcoin, everybody's going, oh, the US currency is going out, and you have the basket of currencies and all that stuff. That's a very linear thought process to get to that conclusion, right? It's like, okay, we'll take what's here, we'll shuffle it around. Well, with Bitcoin, what you have is a third party. And the concern that Thiel had really was that you can have third party manipulation of this. And if you have a large enough third party, they could potentially use currency as a form of warfare. And that's a real big concern. Imagine if a huge holder of Bitcoin liquidated all their holdings overnight and caused the price to drop to $1,200 a unit. People 100%.
Would go crazy. And that's a devaluation of currencies is why I've always said most other countries want their currency to be worth less than the US dollar. And so they are racing towards inflating their currency. And we do not have an inflation problem here in the US. And you are exactly right. Currency wars is what we are going to see next.
Did you just say that we don't have an inflation problem in the US?
I do not believe that we have an inflation problem in the US.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you on that. And I'm going to say it here. I'm saying it here at 2:14 on Friday, the 9th of April. This is the biggest, This is the biggest impetus, or if you're hearing this is the biggest reason that you should buy real estate or other assets. Because right now, we're starting to see it. It's first trickled into lumber. And that was compounded by supply chain issues. We're seeing this happen in copper, in structural steel, in other parts of the building trades. And it's trickling into other parts of life. People are not going to realize that this is happening until they get to the point where they go to the grocery store. Instead of $5 for a gallon of milk, it's $15 or $20. And they're going, oh my goodness, this happened overnight. And really, that's what's happened.
So you think there's going to be a 300% increase? So you're not only saying inflation, but you're saying more than a 100% increase.
Not in everything.
Okay.
Certainly not in everything. And what we could see is the US government stepping in and buying up surpluses to keep prices low, to prevent the inflation from showing up in a staggering way at the consumer level. If you spend $400 a week in groceries, and if you've got kids, that's not a crazy amount.
Yeah.
$200, whatever. Let's say you spend $200 a week in groceries. When that goes to $600 a week, that changes the whole dynamic. And that's kind of one of the reasons that when they were pushing the $15 minimum wage, I actually thought that would be a good time to unveil it, because everything's going up, and $15 an hour might really be 7.25 or 7.15, whatever the
See, I think if you're worried
point.
about inflation, a $15 minimum wage is the worst thing, because what it's going to cause and what it's going to spark is wage-based inflation.
Dude, how do we go from, man, we're moving on. Next story. Malls are dead on arrival. I mean, to a really bad degree. The malls in the United States are in bad trouble. We've got vacancy rates from Q1 to 2021 up to 11.4% average vacancy rate. That means one
And
out of
here's
10
why that's
stores.
such a big deal. Here's why that's such a big deal. When you're looking to develop a mall, you're looking to build a mall, you're looking to do any one of these things, 5, 10, 15 years ago, and you're like, okay, what's my vacancy rate over the next 10 years going to be? A mall used to be a very safe, very stable investment, a very low cap rate. And there used to be a very low vacancy factor in there, 2, 3, 5%, maybe as much as 5%, but probably 2 or 3% is what they'd be looking at for a vacancy rate. Because if somebody is on their way out, you get them out and you get somebody else in right away. And malls used to have a waiting list of people looking to move in, and the fact that they have the vacancy rate as high, that's problematic.
Well, and it's even a bigger problem. It's a slippery slope. You've got it. Do you remember in the movie The Big Short when the hedge fund manager that couldn't talk to anybody, and I always forget his name, but he wears shorts and t-shirts and no shoes in the office, and he's explaining to two of his investors this investment that he just made, and he says, well, if the liquidity falls below a certain level, the contracts are voided. And he's like, the contracts are voided. That's a terrible. You get the same thing in these malls.
Right.
You have tenants that were told, hey, look, Barnes and Noble is going to be an anchor store. Macy's is going to be an anchor store in this mall. Those types of businesses, anchors, Target, Walmart, they bring foot traffic. They bring people in. And those people, they go next door and they buy something over there. They go to the other end of the mall and they buy something there. But if you lose some of those tenants, or the vacancy rate in those malls drops below a certain level, it can trigger these issues that you have where all of a sudden, Judah's got an anchor store. He leaves. I look around and I say, you know what? Our vacancy rate dropped below where it needs to be on the contract. I'm out.
Right.
Now you got a 25% vacancy rate, and that jumps and it jumps.
It's a downward spiral. But hopefully what it means is that, mall, two things could happen. 3 things could happen here. Rents go down, obviously, as the Wall Street Journal, and I posted on my Facebook page and got very little attention. I'll send it to you. But Wall Street Journal discovered supply and demand with New York real estate prices. And they were talking about it like it was a big thing, like, in the middle of the pandemic. And everyone moving out, rents are going through the floor in Manhattan, retail space. It's crazy. Places that used to rent for $5,000 a month are now only renting for $2,500 a month. The other thing that could happen is malls usually like what's called a national credit tenant. National credit tenant. And that's why when you walk into a mall, 95.5% of the places in there are national places. They'll maybe do some local mom and pop shops here or there. I think that what we might start to see is some more local businesses looking to move into malls, and malls might be willing to do that. So the place that used to be on Main Street, we might see more Main Street in the mall. That would kind of be a cool thing. I think we're also going to start to see more of those places. Who says that there can't be a grocery store at a mall? Who says that there can't be a vaccine distribution center like there is right now, at Park City? That's a temporary thing. I think we might see movie theaters coming back into malls and taking up space that way. And a lot of malls that have kind of moved out and they're separate. I think the other thing that we might see is obviously They're talking about warehouse space and Amazon distribution and whatever else. The problem with that is usually malls are built close to big highway systems, but they are but those highway systems were built and designed for a lot of commuter traffic and residential uh,
Small vehicle
individual
traffic.
yeah, small vehicle traffic, not necessarily and so if you got a bunch of 18-wheelers rumbling in and out of your average mall, that obviously could cause and create some problems and challenges.
Well, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a lot of these places repurposed. If you've got 300,000 square feet of space, what the heck are you going to do with it? And it reminds me a lot of our conversation yesterday with Brandon Motuk about building these warehouses for grow houses, for storage, for distribution centers, all of this stuff. It's just a change in the economy, and as the economy changes,
it's so much. The problem is sometimes if you're changing the use too much, it's usually just cheaper to build instead of retrofit. Everyone's like, why can't you just retrofit? Actually, because it costs a lot of money. When something's purpose built, it's hard to retrofit it. So the only other thing that I want to say about this is not necessarily all malls. This is probably going to affect large chains. But like I was just in downtown. I've been in Park City a lot the past 2 to 3 weeks, and I think that there's a whole lot. I see a whole lot of traffic there at Park City, and I'm encouraged by what I see in Park City.
All right. So Jeremy said something here that I think makes a lot of sense, and transitioning a lot of these spaces from from buying goods or selling goods to selling experiences, I think that can go a long way. And I think people are realizing that that's what they'd rather spend money on. And yeah, we all like a nice pair of shoes and, some clothes and all this and that. But at the end of the day, I think everybody can agree that you get a lot more from spending time with their friends and family or going and enjoying experiences. So we could see skate parks. We could see some of these, what do they call it? Like the escape rooms?
I was just to say escape rooms, movie theaters. Think about all the stuff that you see at the Ocean City, New Jersey or Ocean City, Maryland boardwalk. There's a bunch of experiences there, and I think that we could see a lot. We could see a lot more of
that. On that note, I'm going down this rabbit hole real quick. There's a franchise out there it's a VR experience, right?
Yeah.
And the equipment, I mean, it might cost you a couple $1 million startup. It's unbelievable though. I mean, they've got these wide open spaces it looks like something out of a movie, where like you got people moving it all around and stuff like that.
I've seen this too. I've seen this too. And I think that just like, we had home video games, and then there was like video games at the arcade, and like we did this for a while, like they both moved up, but then as you could pretty much get at home anything you could get in the arcades died, unfortunately. As somebody who was who loved going to the arcades, either to play video games or watch other people play video games and things like that. I think that one of the things that we're going to see is as VR comes out, we're going to see a whole lot of VR arcades and VR. And I think because between Google and all these other places, they've been working on some form of augmented reality, virtual reality for video games and for training people. That's the other way that it can come out really good is imagine how much you can learn from a YouTube video. Well, imagine how much more you could learn by practicing what you're about to do 2 or 3 times yourself in an augmented reality situation. So now imagine if you're somebody who wants to train people to build something or do something or whatever in a factory. So I think that there's a whole lot of upside potential for VR, and we're going to see that. But I think that one of the places that we're first going to see it is in video games and in a mall arcade type setting. I think it's really cool.
I think that's going to be really awesome and something I'm
it's
interested
going to
in.
Be awesome, Josh.
Spending time in.
Get here.
I know, exactly. All right, bad news. Property taxes went up in 2020. In fact,
now we're not saying that in Palmyra, Pennsylvania, or Dauphin County or Lancaster County, but obviously when property taxes when we take the aggregate of the average of the average of the average of America, and we look at what happens with property taxes, it's likely that property taxes are going up in a township near you sometime soon.
Well, guess what, Judah? The value of your home went up also.
Right.
So it kind of follows. Essentially what we're seeing is just over a 1% on average property tax rate. Now, there are some exceptions to this. New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Texas have some of the highest property taxes in the country. Syracuse, New York actually has the highest at 2.7% of the property value is the property tax rate. And then you flip that and you look at areas like Hawaii and Alabama and West Virginia, where they're a fraction of a percent, to cover.
I would not have known that. I would not have known that Hawaii was among the was among the other side.
Dude,
because they're a reliably blue state. There's a lot about. Also, they can afford to have higher property taxes because who doesn't want to go to Hawaii and who doesn't want to live in Hawaii?
Right.
I would believe that Alaska is probably on the lower end just because they have so much oil revenue and other things like that. That they're probably. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Alaska has negative property taxes. But it's I'm not joking. There's some stuff like that in Alaska where it's actually negative. Like for example, in Alaska, in a lot of markets in Alaska, you advertise and say, "Hey, I'm a tenant looking for a place to rent." Landlords don't advertise vacant properties. Tenants advertise, "I'm looking for a place to rent. Please call me." Blah blah blah.
Right. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, new agents find challenges in this flaming market. My goodness. So imagine if it was so easy to sell your product or service that when you announced it was for sale, you would have competing bids of 10 or 15 or 20% higher than you were asking for the product. You'd see an influx of people wanting to sell that, right?
Right.
I mean, especially the commissions are strong, they're thousands of dollars a piece, whatever. Well, guess what? A lot of people had that thought. And right now, there are twice as many agents as there are listings.
Correct. I saw that. I saw that story like two weeks ago. There's more agents in America than there are houses for sale in America.
Yeah. You have experienced agents who are doing everything in their power to find a listing. They're reaching out to their network. And it's funny how many real estate agents that I haven't talked to in years called me over the last 6 months. Hey, what are you doing? How you been? Oh, I'm great. Why are you calling me?
Right.
They're reaching out to their network. They're doing tons. If you own any rental properties, or you own a single family home, I guarantee that you've gotten flyers in the mail from your local agent telling you how much they could get for your home or soliciting a call. They're reaching out everywhere to find these listings. And you have these newer agents coming in and saying, okay, well, they'll list the property. I'll bring the buyer.
Right.
And they find themselves trying to learn in an environment where they're not going to be able to be involved in enough transactions, even to get their feet on the ground and get their legs underneath of them. I thought this was a really interesting problem to have. Right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting though to me because there's always a Pareto principle at play, right? Like the top 10% always does 90% of the business. But what's interesting is that there's still enough business that those agents are getting that they're still in the industry. So if it was too bad for all those new agents, they'd be out of the industry. You know what I mean? So everyone's saying that all the bigger guys are sucking up all the volume, and sure they're sucking up a lot of the volume. But if there was nothing for these new agents to be doing, they would be going and doing something else.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, there are plenty of people that they get their brokers or their agent's license. They sign up with a broker and then they list their uncle's house and their mom's house and their sister's house. And in this market, that's a great place to be.
Right.
You can make some really great money doing that.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, I one, two, three, four, five. I have 5 listings on the MLS right now, and I have 7 more that I need to get listed this weekend. And so what is that? 5 plus 7 is 12.
12.
So I have the and I have like 2 or 3 that like I'm working on. I'm not bragging. My grandmother always said self-praise stinks, but I have 12 listings right now, right? And I have time for more. And in order to survive, all you need is 1 or 2 deals a month, right? So I have 12, and it's like 10 to 25% of what I do. A lot of these new agents that are out there, if you're a new agent and you can't find 2 deals a month, you just need to call your friends and family more. Like, you just need to call every single expired listing. Like, if you don't have deals, that means that all your time is spent on finding deals. It's like if you're the old adage is if you're out of work, your full-time job is finding a job. If you don't have a deal, your full-time job is finding a deal. And even though this market is white hot, there's a whole lot of business out there to be had.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There really is. All right. Great day today. We came to the end of our news stories and the end of the show. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We will be back here Monday at noon, unless there's a change, and we'll post that if there is. But we're anticipating being back here on Monday. You guys have a great weekend. It's going to be a little overcast, but man, it's getting warm. Low 70s this weekend. Get those shorts out. That's awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Until we see you on Monday, you guys have a great weekend and go make some money. We'll see you Monday.
See you, everybody.